Firstly, we would like to invite our President, President Gopal, to address us.
So, President Gopal.
Good evening and good day to all. It's my pleasure to welcome all of you for attending today's meeting. We'd like to extend a special welcome to our guest of honor, District Governor Dato Bindi Rajasegaran, past District Governor Dr Baskaran, past District Governor Madam Leslie, past District Governor Kiranjit, past District Governor Dr Rajinder Singh, DGN Dato Siva, District Governor 3310 Dolly Yap, Bill Peacock, District 9560 Polio Chair, AG Adrian and AG Naga, President, Rotarians from all district Rotaractors and guests. Now for our speakers, Michael K. McGovern, Rotary International PolioPlus Chair, Susanne Rea, co-founder of WGM, Dr. Selva, District 3300 Polio Chair. They are speaking tonight on World Greatest Meal to End Polio.
Not connecting, baby.
Before I pass back to the MC, let me thank you, our club-owned past Assistant Governor, Dr. PK Rajesh, for organizing this event. Have fun, everyone. MC?
Thank you, President. Thank you so much. As always, short and sweet welcome all the guests. Yeah. So, okay, Dhanesh, who's
okay now?
Yeah.
Okay, now to follow through, we will call upon our PP Moorthy to introduce the DG.
Thank you very much, MC. Good evening, everybody. It's a great pleasure and a privilege and a honor to introduce our DG for District 3300. Governor Dato Bindi Rajasegaran. She is from the Rotary Club of Greentown, Ipoh. And she is the managing partner and administrator of Rajasegaran Consultants, a leading legal industrial relations advisory practice. Dato Bindi and Dato Rajasegaran have 4 children and 7 grandchildren. During her 24 years of service to Rotary, she has held a full complement of positions in the Rotary District 3300, 4 terms acting as the District Polio Chair, 5 terms as the District Peace Scholar Chair, and has been a working member of the District for Preventable Blindness Committee for 15 years since the year 2005. She has held numerous high-risk and humanitarian and polio eradication missions to Cambodia, to Nepal, Sri Lanka, and India. In 2019, she organized the Peace Builders Conference targeting the issue of refugees in the country in partnership with UNHCR and the World Bank. In recognition for her service to Rotary, Dato Bindi, a major donor, has been recognized with the 4 avenues of service citations for individual Rotarians, Rotary Foundation citation for meritorious service, the Rotary Foundation Regional Service Award for Polio-Free World. Bindi has also taken the mental health agenda to a national level with the creation of National Coalition on Mental Health Initiatives, focused on creating a unified platform to address critical issues affecting mental health, bringing together more than 34 organizations in this field, including the Ministry of Health and UNICEF, and as well as the World Health Organization. She's also very passionate about the environment and was instrumental in the first global climate conference led by the district. She has initiated a no single-use plastic policy in the district. And we would like to welcome the DG.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. However, our DG is currently also engaged in another event, but it did not stop her from sending us a message. So I would like to share the message here with us, everybody. Is it visible?
Yes.
Good evening, Organizing Chairman and Country Coordinator, World Greatest Meal, PDG Dr Rajesh, Michael K. Govan, Rotary International PolioPlus Chair, Susanne Rea, co-founder of the amazing World Greatest Meal. A very good evening to all of you. Now, today's event is to create the awareness on the need to support the eradication of polio program. Now, let me ask you a question. When was polio last in Europe? If you guessed 2002, the year the region was certified free, you're wrong. The last time polio affected a child in Europe was 2015. 2 Ukrainian children were diagnosed with paralytic polio. And that likely means that many more were infected and didn't show symptoms. But the reality is that no place on earth is safe from polio until the disease is eradicated everywhere. Similarly, we had cases of polio in Sabah, end of 2019. And I give you another example. In 2014, just before the World Cup brought travelers from all over the planet to Brazil, polio virus was detected in the sewage system at Sao Paulo's International Airport. Using genetic testing, officials traced its origin to Equatorial Guinea. Brazil's regular vaccination efforts kept the disease from showing up beyond the airport doors. Now, one of the most important aspects of the fight to eradicate polio is detection. And this requires continuous surveillance that is complicated and costly. Polio surveillance consists of 2 parts. First, doctors and community health workers monitor children for acute flaccid paralysis. The second part of the process involves local authorities collecting samples from sewerage systems or in places that don't have adequate sanitation facilities, including rivers or bodies of water near a large group of residents. 90% of people infected with the virus show no symptoms, and those who do usually have mild symptoms such as fever, fatigue, and headaches. Only 1 in every 200 cases of the illness results in paralysis, which means that for every child who is paralyzed, several hundred are carrying the disease and may not show it. 145 labs monitor polio around the world. 72 countries are being monitored for polio. Vigilance is the key to successful surveillance. This is a hidden cost to the program that people don't realize is absolutely necessary to maintain. So, my dear friends, today, every morsel of food that you take saves a child from polio. Do eat heartily and do donate generously. Thank you and good night.
So, on behalf of Rotary Club of Bandar, Petani, I would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to our district governor. Despite not being able to make it, she has virtually joined us with us on this virtual WGM. So, thank you, district governor. All right. So, I think moving on. Dhanesh, what's in stock?
All right, moving on. I would like to call upon PAG Dr. PK Rajesh to introduce Susanne.
Thank you, Dhanesh. Thank you all for joining us today. It's my pleasure to introduce Susanne Rea. We all know that Susanne Rea is the co-founder of WGM, and we all might know that she has raised more than 8.5 US via WGM to help PolioPlus. But there is also another part which most of us might not know. She actually got the Order of Australia in 2017 for the area of child trafficking, of course, also polio eradication. She has raised US 130K at one time to build schools for tribal children. So it's not only polio, she's actually involved in many other fundraising events and many other projects. She was a past president of the Rotary Club of Cane Sunrise, District 9550, and continues to be the promotions and development coordinator for Rotary Australia. Her fundraising skills are known, so I'm not going through the list. As I said, she's the Order of Australia 2017. She received a citation for meritorious service to the Rotary Foundation presented by the trustees in 2013. And she's a recipient of International Service Award for Polio Free World 2014-15. She now travels globally, speaking at clubs, district conferences, institute, special events, pets, etc., on the need to support total polio eradication, successful social media promotions, public image, and membership. Ladies and gentlemen, Susanne Rea. Ma'am, all yours.
Thank you for your gracious introduction, Rajesh. And I was very impressed by the words of your district governor. She obviously knows her polio, and I did note her being awarded the Regional Service Award for a polio-free world, and that she'd been the polio chair many times in your district prior to her elevation to district governor. So congratulations on your speech. Now, I'm not going to focus on the technicalities of polio because I feel that there are other people more qualified than me on this call. So I'm really going to focus on World's Greatest Meal and how we can support the work of the Rotary Foundation Polio Fund by donations coming from 84 countries. And some are more active than others, of course, and some have just put their finger in the water and once or twice. So I'm really grateful to my team. Could we have the first slide, please? Here we are. I wanted to show this slide because I feel that it just illustrates our aim. We all want a polio-free future for every child. No child is safe until all children are safe. We have this marvelous little white man on the corner of the bottom left who comes from Brazil, where Claudette, one of our greatest workers over a long period of time, promotes events for World's Greatest Meal and the Rotary Foundation with great success. On the right, we have another child. And this is saying that we must continue vaccination. And although I said that I would not be focusing on the technicalities, the truth is that we can't just say that because we have one case in Afghanistan and one case in Pakistan this year, that we're doing amazingly, because we just never know what's around the corner. I don't think anyone expected this seeming success this year after last year. So we must work hard all the time. And then once we are at 0, 3 years has to pass before we can start to think that the world indeed is polio free. So fundraising is critical, and this is not the time to think, oh, polio is finished, because it's not. I wish it was. We could all have a big rest, but no, we have to work. Please continue to the next slide. I want to tell you that I spend an awful lot of time on Facebook, and I have approximately 5,000 friends, most of whom I don't have a clue who they are, but I do know quite a lot of people, and I enjoy interacting with them. So I started this other page, which is fairly factual and deals with many polio activities that are going on around the world. I have to say thank you to Bill Peacock in Australia, who is our Australian coordinator, who sends me endless links. He must subscribe to so many newspapers. And I put quite a few up on this site and also on a little group we had called End Polio Now, which is quite flourishing as well. Thank you. Next slide. I just want to tell you about some of the things I was doing when we were allowed to travel. And of course, Rajesh is right, that my aim is to travel, but mainly it's by Zoom nowadays. So just a little bit of an illustration of the time. Up in the top left, I was in Brazil with the Rotary Flame in India, and in Seoul, Korea, with some marvelous Rotarians, including our future leader, Jennifer Jones, who is a big supporter of End Polio. We all want to end polio, and traveling was a great way to bring this to the fore. Now we're on Zoom, it's not quite the same. I don't feel you get the same audience reaction when you're speaking on Zoom, but this is what we can do. I don't know right now if ever I will be able to go back to the way it was. I somehow think not. So I'm really thankful in some ways to be able to talk to you today. Next, please. Traveling and living in different countries was something I had the great privilege to do. I don't know if many of you know that I actually lived in Pakistan. That was a wonderful experience, and I was enmeshed with the End Polio effort based just outside of Islamabad, but traveling all over District 3272 primarily. I also had 6 trips to India, and I was made so welcome by the Rotarians there, made some really good friends. We've continued to work together, not just with polio, but with corrective surgeries and other global grants. And I think it's through knowing people on this level and through Facebook that it is a great medium for cooperation between Rotarians. Another time saw me in Africa, and living in Uganda, well, that was quite an experience. And these lovely children that you see in this photo on the bottom, they were just so beautiful, living in a terrible slum, I might add, that none of us would even like to visit, let alone live. Every club in Kampala at that time was required to have a vaccination table once a week in a certain area. And the children came, and they didn't get just polio vaccinations. They got vaccinations for many other childhood diseases. And World Health were there, and it was quite an illuminating time to be there. It was just, Samaweri was still alive, and it was just feeling the energy of the Rotarians in Africa and what they were trying to do to bring their countries up and to help them become better, you know, because there is indeed a lot of need there, was just so wonderful to witness. It was a great privilege. So I've been lucky And through actually visiting these countries, I think that I've been more effective as a fundraiser because I actually know what goes on. And I think people believe in me for that reason. At least I hope they do. Next, please. So we have a few more slides from Africa. And this was an amazing achievement. I know perhaps quite a bit about Nigeria without actually going there through the amazing Dr. Tunji Funcho and one of our team, Perla Koro. She is amazing as well. I was privileged to speak on the radio in Zimbabwe and Zambia and Kenya and all sorts of places. And on the right, I'm standing at a World Health Rally. And you know, sometimes you don't know if people really want to know what you're talking about, but it is interesting that the children and the mothers were always very interested in having me vaccinate their children. They seem to think it was lucky. I feel that anyone who vaccinates a child is having a privilege to do that. And I hope the children go on to be polio free and have more vaccinations, because one is really not enough when children are not in good condition. Next, please. In Pakistan, the shift began in about 2014-15 to train female polio workers, but they're not all female. And it was particularly in Karachi in the bottom slide that I was privileged to speak to these ladies who were going to be trained to go door to door, because it was so much more effective for them to be speaking to the women of the household and asking them to bring the children out, much more culturally appropriate. In the top right, that is taken in Afghanistan. Now, I've never been to Afghanistan, but I like to include that picture. In much the same thought that the women can reach other women and help get the children vaccinated. On the left, at the top, I was telling the polio workers about Rotary and about the people outside of Pakistan who were really hoping and praying for their success. And they were doing that often by raising money, because not everyone has the privilege to go there. They were raising money so that these people could go out and vaccinate children in our name. And I hope that you will give generously tonight, thinking of the good that you will do in these countries that are less wealthy than our own, and really help to make a difference to these children, because vaccination is the key to polio eradication. Next, please. We've all had a big lesson lately with COVID, and we know that migration is the biggest threat to ending polio. Children are moving very rapidly now throughout the subcontinent, and we must make sure that the Pakistani Rotarians are ready and the polio workers are ready at the borders to vaccinate those coming from Afghanistan and prevent any recurrence of cross-border infection. There is a huge refugee camp in Pakistan near Karachi, and the other photos were taken there when my husband Nauman and I were there in 2015. And it seems a long time ago, but we've been on the go ever since, it seems, and nothing will have changed. The children are beautiful. The conditions there are pitiful. There is very little water, sanitation. It has been a hotbed of polio, but through hard work on the part of Trustee Aziz Memon and his teams, this has improved dramatically. The only thing that will stop is if we stop giving money to help. I'd hate to always emphasize money, but money is just what we can do. We can't all go. I know that Mike, who's on this call, Mike has been many times to Pakistan too, and knows how wonderfully hardworking the Pakistani Rotarians are. The epicenter is now on Pakistan and Afghanistan. This is where we must pour a lot of resources to help them and get their countries polio-free forever. It's been a long, long time. Polio has been around for thousands of years. We have a historic opportunity now. Let's not waste it. Next, please. In Pakistan, it was always a great privilege to go to different places where they welcomed you to go and help with the polio effort. And I always felt that the mothers were keen for you to immunize their children, but sometimes the older children were a little bit scared of you, especially with my hair being a completely different color to the others. And they're thinking, who is this woman? Maybe she's from outer space, I don't know. In the middle, you can see a young mother who cannot bear to see her child receive the initial injection that will stop that child getting polio. She's done the right thing in bringing the child to the clinic, but she doesn't want to watch. I love this photo because it just makes me feel mothers the world over are the same. Parents all want the best for their children. And this is the best we can do to bring the vaccinations to them and ensure a polio-free life for every child. Next, please. During the time of COVID, there were not many meetings happening. So we came up with ideas, different ideas to help raise money. And one of the ideas was to initiate End Polio Champions. And you will see a few pictures here of people from different countries. And there's two themes. One is giving as an individual donor or on behalf of yourself, or maybe a grandchild, as we see in the top left, a much loved grandchild, or giving money when you actually have your own COVID vaccination. And we were asking $25 US for those little images. And it was a reasonable success. But the main success with the champions has been the absolute endless champions coming out of India, thanks to Narasimha and his team. Narasimha Joshi is now the coordinator for India, and he is leading his team really well. And never a day goes past without I'm posting, or Naman, I should say, is posting, and I'm sharing pictures of people giving individual donations to become End Polio champions. So we've had to pivot. But now I think a lot of the world is returning to face-to-face meetings, not all of it. In Australia, certain parts of Australia are quite free and others are still experience lockdown. We go to hybrid meetings sometimes. And I just urge people to think of different ways of stimulating giving. It doesn't matter what you give as long as it's a minimum of $10. It just matters that you join in and become part of the Rotary Foundation Polio Fund giving, so that we can all say that we help to end polio. Thank you. When you join us, would you now report back on our new website, wgmeal.org, and you will see we have a slightly new logo as well. So constant renewal is important, and we decided not to use the same old methods, but to pivot. And in doing so, we have raised quite a lot of money over the last year, which hopefully has made a difference, because I noticed that the Polio Fund only just managed to achieve the match for the Bill and Melinda Gates match. I like to think that World's Greatest Meal and all of you who work so hard for World's Greatest Meal or with us, and all the donors do help so much. So thank you very much. And you will see our other generous donors here. UNICEF, CDC, Bill and Melinda Gates, but Rotary is the key to helping to end polio. Thank you for your time, everyone, and please give generously this evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Melinda, for the wonderful words. I believe that they say a single drop creates a ripple. I think more than a ripple, we need a wave to eradicate polio, right? So whatever efforts we have been putting all around the world has bridged the gap, and we are getting much closer and closer to ending polio. We shall continue this till we eradicate polio completely. Thank you so very much from Rotary Club of Bandar, Petani. So with that, where is my partner in crime? Dhanesh.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay, nice.
Okay, now to move on.
Who's next?
To move on to the next session, I will be happy to invite Rotarian Premier to introduce myself.
Thank you, Rotarian Dhanesh. Dear Rotarians, Rotaractors, and friends of Rotary, good evening. Let me introduce our next speaker, Michael K. McGovern. Mike McGovern joined Rotary in 1986 as a member of Rotary Club of South Portland, Cape Elizabeth, Maine, USA. He has served in many Rotary positions, including as a director and vice president of Rotary International and as a trustee and vice chair of the trustees of the Rotary Foundation. He is a program chair of his Rotary Club. Mike has served as a chair of Rotary International's PolioPlus committee since October 2014. He also represents Rotary on the Polio Oversight Board, which governs the Global Polio Eradication Initiative Partnership and chair its Finance and Accountability Committee. Mike is a global chair of the Rotary Leadership Institute and serves as the advisor to the Rotary COVID-19 Task Force. Let us welcome Michael K. McGovern, the Rotary International PolioPlus chair.
Thank you very much, Ramya. It's good to see a good young Rotarian introducing me. Thank you. Thank you for your service to Rotary. Yeah, it's a real honor to be with you this evening in Malaysia and to see that you have some from other countries as well. It's particularly good to see Susanne and to follow her this evening. Susanne has done a tremendous job around the world. And, oftentimes we see, the financial results, the numbers. But, Susanne has raised a lot of money for polio eradication. But, with Susanne and all of the others who work with her on the World's Greatest Meal do something that's also very important. And that is they bring polio, particularly through social media, to the focus of many Rotarians around the world. There is not a day on Facebook that Susanne or Norman or someone else with the World's Greatest Meal is posting the latest information on polio. They do so with all their bright colors in their materials. And, it's tremendous help to keep polio before the Rotarians of the world. And also, she mentioned, a $10 contribution, that would be fine. And, she's absolutely right. Any contribution is fine. And actually, we do get a few contributions from Mrs. Burler and India and a few other people of, like $1 million. But you know what? To me, the $10 is just as important. And, it is matched by the 2-to-1 by the Gates Foundation. But also, it gives every Rotarian who does it a really good feeling, and particularly will do so when hopefully in a fairly short time, the world will be declared polio free. And, it's one thing to say that, I belong to the organization that accomplished that, as all of you Rotarians and Rotaractors can do. But it's also, I think, particularly special to be able to say, I was part of it. I helped to contribute to make that happen. And, you know, when you speak to your grandchildren, or your grandchildren will speak to their grandchildren, they'll be able to say, you know, my grandmother, my grandfather was one of those that helped to end polio. And, you know, so this, you know, the legacy of what Rotary is potentially accomplishing with our partners, you know, will truly go on for generations and forever, because the real legacy is no child without polio. So what I want to do is to give you a little update on how we're doing. You know, I get the same questions or similar questions all the time. And, you know, what I thought I might do is try to highlight the particular questions. You know, Susanne mentioned we've only had 2 polio cases of the wild polio virus in the world this year. You know, that is, you know, we had 140 last year. You know, it wasn't too long ago. We had 350,000 cases a year, but 2 cases. Yeah, but, you know, I was on a Zoom call, I think it was yesterday, it might have been it was in the last couple of days, with a gentleman named Aidan O'Leary. Aidan is the World Health Organization's polio lead, the person who's responsible more than anyone else for the operation of the Global Polio Eradication Initiative. But anyway, he was talking, and he was giving an update to some group that we were both involved with. And he said that, you know, one of the big issues is we look at cases, but we also look at the environmental sampling that is done. You know, they go to, you know, the ends of culverts, they go into small streams, and they do this in many, many places around the world, but particularly in Pakistan and Afghanistan. And they take samples of the water, and then they take it to a laboratory, and they see if the wild polio virus is in that water. That in India was the best indication that we were about to see the end of polio in India. Well, Aidan said the other day that we have not seen in Pakistan any wild polio virus anywhere in the environment, which means anywhere from all of these samples, since mid-August. You know, it's so, you know, it's good to see we haven't had a case since January, but to also know that we're not finding it in the water is, you know, Susanne mentioned, you know, one case means it's probably circulating perhaps amongst hundreds of others who we don't know about. But, you know, in the case of doing the environmental sampling, we know it isn't circulating because they're not secreting the virus that eventually finds its way to these environmental sample sites. In Afghanistan, you know, it's, you know, everyone worries about Afghanistan, and rightfully so. It's in the news all the time. You know, when we think of what those citizens, those people who live in Afghanistan have had to deal with, you know, their own governments, with other governments who think they want to call the shots in that country, you know, including my own. You know, it hasn't been an easy situation. So, you know, we have a polio program in Afghanistan, and we also do environmental sampling there. And Aidan reported the other day that nowhere in Afghanistan have we seen any of the wild polio virus since February of this year. So we had worried about areas of Afghanistan not being accessible to some of the polio workers, particularly for house-to-house vaccination. But when we hear that it's not showing up in the environmental samples, thankfully, it appears that all of the work that has been going on and the work that had been going on prior to the house-to-house vaccinations was doing its work, was being successful. Clearly a lot of that is helped by, in an odd sort of way, but by COVID. The fact that people weren't traveling as much as a result of COVID, resulted in people not importing the polio virus into an area where it had already been eliminated and then bringing it back because, the immunity systems weren't that strong. Well, the good news is that, it appears to have snuffed itself out. It appears to have, gone away. It could come back. We're starting to see people travel again. But, it's just, in my view, amazing news that, you know, the virus wants to survive, but you know what? We're not letting it. Rotarians we've been persistent, we've kept following this, and it's, you know, it's just, you know, it warms my heart every day to be a Rotarian, to know that all of you and so many others, Rotarians in my own club, in fact, you know, remain devoted to ending polio. So, you know, what is new in Afghanistan? You know, one thing that has not been much covered or discussed is what contacts the polio program has had with the Taliban, you know, in recent times. You know, about 4 years ago now, the Taliban, you know, they've always supported vaccination, but they didn't want any house-to-house vaccinations. And to be really successful, you need to have house-to-house. They didn't want it because of, you know, drones, surveillance. There was a doctor who had visited Osama bin Laden's home to give a vaccination. It wasn't polio, at least we're told that. But there was a feeling that the polio workers might have been spies. So they didn't allow house-to-house. That was very worrisome. But, you know, we always had a group, you know, that's out of Copenhagen, Denmark, that used to sort of represent us in talks with the Pakistan. But at the beginning of this calendar year, the polio program, and particularly the World Health Organization, UNICEF, and almost exclusively them, decided to meet the Taliban directly. They went to Doha in Qatar, and they met with the key representatives of the Taliban in you know, for Afghanistan, but in Doha. And, you know, they could see that there was an opening, there was a possibility that, you know, we could work and achieve things with the Taliban. Well, you know, that they had different meetings, and then, you know, I used the date August 15th, but that's sort of the date that, you know, the old Afghani government fell apart, and, you know, the Taliban really began to take over. But, you know, immediately we had indications from the Taliban that they wanted to work with us, that they were devoted to ending polio. There's a school that our polio chair in Afghanistan works with in Jalalabad. And just the very next day, all of the local Taliban leaders came to the school. And this school is for young girls. And they told them, we want this school to continue. It's important for our country. It's important for the future. And yes, we know you were very involved in polio, and we want to work with you to continue with that. They then, interestingly enough, and I've never shared it because security and other reasons, but they then posed for a picture in front of the school. And there's the Taliban with their guns. And there's some of my Rotary friends, some of the teachers, both women and men. And there they are saying, you know, we're going to work together. We're going to continue. Well, yesterday, we got the news from the Taliban. They had a news conference. I think it was in Kabul, but I'm not sure. And they announced that they had worked things out, so they will resume house-to-house vaccinations throughout the country for polio eradication. You know, it was the best news I've had in a long time. You know, it also, you know, they've indicated, you know, continue to work with the women health workers, the frontline workers, in so achieving that. So, you know, that is just, you know, tremendous news. So, you know, with that and with the progress in, you know, in Pakistan, you know, that area of the country is actually looking good. All of the health ministers had a meeting yesterday, at 5 a.m. yesterday, in Cairo, or somewhere there in Cairo, but somewhere there by Zoom. And all of them recommitted. Countries like Syria and Bahrain, Iran was there as well and spoke, and they all committed. And other countries yesterday committed more humanitarian aid. So all of that looks positive for the eradication of polio. You know, we also, you know, Margaret James Cooper has a question. We've also stepped up our work at the borders. We have permanent transit points there, trying to make sure that, you know, if there is polio, it doesn't spread back and forth. You know, so we don't know if we're done in those two countries, but, you know, we've never, you know, I don't use this close, but we've never been closer. You know, I have nothing but good news to report on, you know, that this long saga of trying to end polio, you know, has been worth it. You know, we do so many other things as well to try to help people. In Pakistan this week, you know, in the immunizations, they gave out measles vaccines as well. It's, you know, it's been a priority of the government that we not only give out polio vaccines, but we give out measles and other vaccines as well. And there's great leadership now in Pakistan, in the government, trying to make sure that happens. You know, some of you may also be aware that we've had something called circulating vaccine-derived cases. There were 1,100 of them last year. This year, there's about 330, 340. We'll get a new number tomorrow. Those have been tremendous concern. They have the same effect on children as the regular polio. But, you know, there was a new polio vaccine that was developed. Over 10 years, it got an early use license a year ago. That has now been given to 100 million children. Doses of that. It has, you know, helped to quiet the new cases where, as I said, we're going down. A lot of those drops have been in Nigeria. And this vaccine, you know, the ones who get the virus, they get it not from getting the polio vaccine. They get it because they're not immunized at all. Their immunity systems are low. So by giving this new vaccine, which is you know, a lot more stable, it's less likely to pass on to these unvaccinated people. It's all a good thing. And again, it's just been a week of good news. There's a group of the strategic, called the SAGE, I forget the exact names, but they're the global experts on vaccines. And they recommended that this new oral polio vaccine be given a permanent license. That happened just this week, which means that everyone now knows after a year of, you know, hoping, but after some clinical trials before that the vaccine is safe and it's doing its job. So, you know, I have nothing but good news to report. All of this is because Rotary has stood to help over the years, things like the world's greatest meal, you know, all of the other activities. You know, Bill Peacock is on the call, and, you know, buy a koala, polio koala from him. He can put some information in the chat. But it's all those things of, you know, one they're pretty nice little animals, marsupials, not bears. But you know, it's all of the people like Bill and all of you that keep this going and are going to accomplish the end of polio. So, you know, Gates, as was mentioned, still matching things 2 to 1. You know, all of our partners are working with us. John Germ and I had some one-on-one meeting, 2-on-1, with the head of UNICEF worldwide yesterday. She reached out to us and said she wanted to talk. You know, and those are the type things that, you know, we are getting the focus they need. Also yesterday, you know, the head of the CDC, the Centers of Disease Control in the United States, participated in a call live at 5 a.m. specifically to talk about polio. And she's in charge of COVID in the United States. And, you know, I've seen her probably 3 or 4 times in the last few weeks on polio, different issues. So, you know, everyone's staying with us. Dr. Tedros, the head of WHO, and Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, all of the partners, obviously the Gates Foundation. But anyway, so thank you, Malaysia. Thank you, the rest of you, Margaret from the United Kingdom, those of you, I see Claudette from Brazil on the call, and those from Australia, and particularly, you know, I want to really thank Suzanne. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I've tried not to overextend my time, but I had a lot to talk about that I think that I wanted you to hear about. I'm really happy with what's going on in Afghanistan, Pakistan. The Rotarians in Africa are really doing a good job, and everyone is working together, including people that, you know, we haven't always gotten along with. But everyone's working together to end polio. So thank you, and I'll return it back to whoever I'm supposed to return it back to.
Mike, we have a question actually from Margaret James Cooper. Many see Afghanistan as polio eradication Achilles heel, more so about migration into Pakistan in relation to current events in Afghanistan. What is your take on this perception?
You know, Ramya and Margaret, I thought at the beginning of this calendar year that the last case would be in Afghanistan. You know, it could be still. But, you know, I don't see it as the Achilles heel. I think, you know, in a sort of odd way, you know, the Taliban, you know, they haven't exactly been the good guys over the years. You know, there's things that they've done that, you know, would curl our hair, as the saying goes. But my sense now is they want to prove that they can govern. And one way to show it to the world is through assisting with the polio vaccine. They have been aggressive over the last couple of months that they greatly need humanitarian aid, particularly from the World Bank. And they're sort of using the polio as a leverage to show that they can be responsible, they can govern, and that people can trust them with humanitarian aid. Rotary doesn't actually give any money directly to the Taliban or to governments. We give it to UNICEF and WHO, and they make sure that the money's spent. So I don't see, I see a good way forward with the polio program in Afghanistan. I see a good way forward in Pakistan. In fact, I'm finally going on an airplane. I'm going there next November, next month. The Imran Khan, the prime minister there, has invited the group I serve on the polio oversight board to be there, and it'll be good to see Aziz, our polio chair, there. That's another example. It'll be the second meeting Imran Khan had with Chris Elias from the Gates Foundation, who's the chair of our POB, in about 4 months, and he specifically wanted us back to update us on what's going on. So, I'm reasonably confident. We still maybe have more cases. It could be polio out there, but everyone's so determined to work together to get it done.
Thank you, Mike. Is there any other questions, or shall I hand over to our MC? Yeah, I think Dr. Parthiban.
Yeah, Dr. Bernard said, great to hear about the progress on the chat. Spread the word to the Rotarians that we are making progress, that things are good. I think, but we still need to immunize 400 million kids a year. It isn't, there was an American baseball player who once said, it ain't over till it's over. They made fun of him for saying that. It was sort of an odd way to say, but he's so right with polio. It's not done until it's done. So thanks, Dr. Bernard. And we spread the word about the progress.
Thanks, Mike. And thanks, Susan, for working so hard, for being like so closer there. So Dr. Parthiban, back to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mike, for walking us through this, this enormous task at hand, which is taken by all of us. I caught an interesting comment by William saying that we are all in safe hands with the leadership given to us by Mike McGovern. Thank you all for all you do, Mike and Susanne. Surviving polio has taught me the exceptional value of life and the need to eradicate polio. So I believe that it's important for each and every one of us to take this and move forward into eradicating polio. Thank you so much. And it's moving on. Dhanesh, thanks.
Moving on, I would like to call upon Rotarian Izin to introduce Dr. Selva.
Thank you, Rotarian Dhanesh. Good evening, friends. Allow me to introduce our District PolioPlus Chair, past President Dr. Selva Kumar. Dr. Selva is a consultant pediatrician specializing in pediatric nephrology. He is currently the head of Department of Pediatric Department at Hospital Selayang. His busy life as a medical practitioner and researcher doesn't stop his involvement in Rotary. He has been a Rotarian since February 2010, first with the Rotary Club of Indira Makota, and now the Rotary Club of Melawati. He has served in many positions at both clubs and at district level. Dr. Selva is a strong supporter of PolioPlus and is a major donor of the Rotary Foundation. Dear friends, let's welcome Dr. Selva to share on polio, a brief overview.
Thank you, Yizin. First of all, let me share the slides first. Okay. Can you see them?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Prior to that, I would like to thank the organizers, especially Dr. Rajesh, for inviting me to share the platform with the doyens of Rotary, like Mike McGovern and Susanne Rea. And to talk about polio as a pediatrician, it's my passion, even though we have not seen polio in this country. But I have, as a medical student, have been used to follow the nurses to administer oral polio those days, actually, in the villages and such. And I'm going to just give a brief overview of polio in the world and some in Malaysia. In fact, I think our DG Dato Bindi has done when she did the opening speech, she has covered much of it, actually. As we know, this is the polio virus, and I'm sure our Dr. Rajesh will be better to explain about the polio virus. In fact, polio or any virus is not a living organism. That's a surprising thing, actually. It's an innate organism, and yet it can cause a lot of damage to the human beings, actually. Polio is a highly infectious disease by the virus. It's a picorna virus. It's a very small virus, an antivirus. It dwells in the intestine of human beings. However, it can cause paralysis and even death in a matter of hours. And there's no cure. It only can be prevented by vaccine. And that's why we've been doing very well now. And we are almost there, the end game. And as you know, from the archaeological evidence that polio has been, this is indirect correlation that if you look at this diagram, the hieroglyphic of Egypt, back in 450 BC, they have demonstrated that possibly this particular guy has polio because one of his legs is atrophied and disused. That's the sign of polio. A bit of history, historical timeline. As we know, Michael Underwood diagnosed polio, even though polio was there back a long time ago, but it was first documented in US, Vermont, there was a first outbreak. I think polio has been there for a long time, because why polio became apparent as we became more socially evolved. The kids that used to be exposed to polio earlier wasn't exposed, and they did not get the immunity from the infection itself. So these are the kids who got it later, and as DG Bindi said, 1%, 1 in 200 polio infection will get the paralytic polio, and that's what we were seeing back in 1930s, 1944. And thanks to our savior, that's why we're celebrating our World Polio Day, Dr. Jonas Salk, in 1955, in fact 54, he found the first inactivated injectable polio vaccine, and it was in a mass vaccination program in states, and managed to bring down the number of polio victims in the states. Back in 1950, there were about 33,300 of paralytic polio patients were using the iron lung, and now iron lung is only seen in museum, actually. And back up to 1960, went down to almost 1,312. And by 1979, USA was certified polio-free. 1974, Sanofi Pasteur made a better vaccine. And in 2004, there was only 39 people dependent on the iron lung. And 2014, as we see, the numbers have gone down. And till today, there's only 2 countries with wild polio, that is Afghanistan and Pakistan, even that only 2 cases. So now let us look at what is the clinical signs of polio. Just basically, as I say, polio virus is a unique virus that they get to the cell, and the cells, the nerve cells tend to go in there, and the cells subsequently go. Most of the time, it's in the oral pharynx, and it gets ingested into the intestine, where it goes into the bloodstream. And as we said earlier, only 1% of this that causes the paralytic polio. Okay, the non-paralytic polio, you can present with fever, sore throat, headache, vomiting, similar like what we are seeing in our COVID-19 infection, actually. However, the paralytic polio are the ones that loss of reflexes, severe muscle ache and weakness, and they become loose and floppy. That is why flaccid paralysis. I would like to just share, this is, my sister-in-law is a polio survivor. She's now about 62 years old. And this is what my mother-in-law told me when I first met them. Actually, they were in Taiping, and those days in 1960s, they would drive all the way back to Penang GH. By the time she reached Penang GH, she was already had a flaccid paralysis. So now she walks with a limb, actually. That's how devastating polio is. And thanks to us that in Malaysia, we started vaccinating with polio in 1972. Okay, this is the two types of polio. One is the wild polio, polio virus, which has been mentioned by Susanne and also Mike. And these are the ones that we do surveillance looking at. If most of the countries, so we keep on doing surveillance to see that it is completely eradicated. The other one that concerns us is the circulating vaccine-derived polio virus. This is the one that sometimes can cause outbreak of polio when the community has some amount of some number of population not immunized. And even this has gone down to less than 200 now. And with the latest vaccine that Mike described, is been licensed because there were two phase 2 trials done in 2020, and WHO has already approved it actually. Now, the transmission is fecal oral route. An infected polio person defecates, it contaminates the water system. And if you are consuming water or any product from the water which is not properly clean, then you can get the infection actually. And I've already mentioned, these are the common symptoms of the polio. Half of them, they get meningitis. They get, most of the kids less than 5 years old, they come with very floppiness. It can be one limb, both limbs actually. And that's why even though now in Malaysia, after we were certified polio-free back in 2000, almost 21 years, and then we had some polio outbreak in Sabah, but we have been recertified polio-free. But till now, as pediatricians, as healthcare practitioners, we must report all children less than 15 years old who come in with any symptoms of weakness or flaccid. We need to collect stool samples, stool eyes, and send these to the main lab. And we continue to do surveillance. That's how we can detect if any outbreak. Even a single child with polio is considered epidemic. And this diagram just illustrates briefly how this polio virus can be infected in some sort of life cycle, and also where we get the infections. Most of the time, they stay in the intestine, they replicate and get excreted. Most of the children have some asymptomatic, but the 1% is the one that paralytic polio. What happens? It's in the anterior horn cells. I mean, it's just medical. This is a part that controls the motor neurons for us, and that's why we get weakness. And subsequent to that, because of the muscles not being used, they get very atrophied, and these kids get either walking with a limp or they can't use the leg at all. This is in Bahasa, Malaysia. I took it when there was a polio outbreak in Sabah. There's 3 types of polio virus: type 1, type 2, and type 3. In fact, the one that's causing a lot of problems is type 2. And the new virus the new vaccine that Mike mentioned, it's dealing with mainly the type 2 virus actually. And now in Malaysia, as I said, we introduced polio vaccine back in 1972 to 74. And the last outbreak we had was in 1979, 121 cases. Subsequently, it completely went down, and we had 2 cases reported back at the time when I was a medical officer in HKL. 2 cases where these were highly, quite well-educated parents, but they were not keen on vaccinating the children, and these 2 children came in with polio. Subsequent to that, we were last was 1992. Then we were declared polio-free as in 2000, and in 2009 December we had a road shock that there were 1 child 3 months old in Tuaran, Sabah, who had the polio came in with flaccid paralysis. And the same time, the same period, when they did the genetic testing, the same virus was circulating in the Philippines and also in Indonesia. But thanks to our frontliners, even though by 25th of January, COVID came in, and by 21st of March, there was lockdown, but the frontliners in Sabah did a fantastic job. And also, even though papers do not mention, Rotary District 3310 mobilized all their Rotarians and financial and also all kind of things. And they went in together, the frontliners, and managed to mop up the entire community within months to make sure that we achieve our polio-free status. That's for congratulations to the Rotarians in Sabah especially. And again, we moved on from oral polio into the IPV, the injectable polio, back in 2008. Even in states, they went much more earlier. Most of the countries, when we reach a state, it is better to vaccine with the inactivated injectable polio. That's what we are doing now. And as you know, as of 2021, it is in 6-in-1. All the other vaccines are together, and we give them at the schedule of 2, 3, and 5 months, and a booster later on. Okay, something about post-polio syndrome. There is something that we call a post-polio syndrome that can occur way later on when you're 40s and 50s. This is after you develop new muscle weakness after your earlier symptomatic poliomyelitis, and there's again no known measures of preventive. Fortunate, this is not infectious. The earlier your younger age group, you are contagious. But when you get post-polio syndrome, it is not contagious. So what is the prevention? Of course, as you say, polio is the sanitation. One thing is you have to have a good sanitation hygiene. And again, polio with the water sanitation and water strike problem, we are doing that. The second thing is vaccination. And that's the most important thing. We need to vaccinate, immunize all the children in the world so that polio can be completely eradicated from the face of Earth. And we hope to do it by 2026. That is in fact, the goalpost for polio eradication has been several times have been pushed, partly due to unseen things that we couldn't control. In fact, by 1988, we should have worldwide by the year 2000 to be polio free. But nevertheless, we are almost there. And the other thing, as I said, surveillance. We need the surveillance by using what, as I said earlier, the acute flaccid paralysis surveillance, where the doctors, mainly the medical officers and the pediatricians, whoever seeing, we need to report every time we see a child with flaccid paralysis. We investigate them so that we can always look for the background if there's an infection going on. The other thing is that the health inspectors and everything, they go and at periodic areas and certain areas, they collect the samples from the water, drain, rivers to identify whether wild polio or the vaccine-derived polio is lurking around. Now, finally, I say vaccination. This is oral polio vaccination, and these are the kids. After the vaccination, they show their finger whether there is the ink. And something interesting, and thank you to PDG Leslie. I'm sure he's in the audience. As I was preparing for our district World Polio Day, I was looking for the speakers and everything, and PDG Leslie mentioned about this gentleman called Thomas Abraham. I'm sure Mike knows him and most of them. He has produced this book, and I'm reading it now. I just purchased it through Amazon for last 5 days. In fact, I've gone through the first 2 chapters. I would like to encourage Rotarians to read this book. It costs about 20 USD on the net. Most of the bookstores in Malaysia do not have this book. It is a fantastic book. He is a journalist, but he brings you to the history of polio right down up till the last chapter is on the vaccines in Afghanistan and Pakistan. And I think I really encourage Rotarians to read this actually. The last infographic is on how much has been spent on polio eradicate and what is the current situation. With that, I thank you. Izin, yours.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Selva, for your informative talk. And I'm really attracted to your slides. They are very colorful and catchy. Dr. Selva, I believe that we have a question from the audience. Margaret James Cooper, because I see the hand raised there.
Yes, Margaret.
Margaret, can you unmute yourself?
I think that was a mistake. I already asked my question anyway. Just to congratulate the organizers, very well organized and good speakers. Congratulations.
Okay, all right.
All right. Bye-bye.
Yeah,
congrats. Yep.
Then
Can I ask a question to Mike? It's not a question actually. Mike mentioned about Afghanistan, and there's a question about Taliban actually. I mean, the answer will be available if you all attend the District 3300 World Polio Day, and I have RI Trustee Aziz Memon talking about his experience in Afghanistan with the Taliban, how they, and it's an interesting, I would not like the cat out of the bag. Please come and join us on the 24th of October at 10 a.m. for you to listen to PDG Aziz Memon himself actually. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Selva. Yeah, Dr. Pati, please.
Thank you, Yajin. Thank you so much, Dr. Selva, for walking us through from history to the current situation to what are we expecting in the future. Definitely an eye-opener for all of us. So thank you for your sharing. On October 24, we shall not miss the dot. So anyways, thank you. And Dhanesh, over to you.
Yes, Dr. Pati. Okay, I mean, we're talking about a lot about WGM. You can enlighten us a bit about WGM?
Okay, so speaking about that, instead of me saying, okay, 2 years ago, actually, we did this small video. It was planned, acted, directed by our none other than our country coordinator, Dr. Rajesh. So I think let the video speak for itself. So me explaining what it is.
What is the relationship between polio and the world's greatest meal? Simple. Polio spreads predominantly through the food we eat. Let's take a walk to the toilet. Polio spreads when the virus passes in the stools, reaches our food directly via flies, dirty fingers, etc. So there's a need to make the world aware of how to prevent polio. Hot or cold, WGM is one way to support polio prevention. It could be over a beer or over a virtual meal. Just log on to wgmeal.com and plan your meal. WGM can be initiated by anyone, general public, interactor, Rotaractor, Rotarian, or by just anyone. Think food, think WGM. Think polio, think WGM. Whatever the amount we donate, it is tripled thanks to the Melinda and Gates Foundation. Remember, whatever the meal, the amount we donate gets us closer and closer to end polio.
So that's the video, but there's a correction now. The website has changed, so it's wgmeal.org. So yeah, I would like to mention that it's not wgmeal.com, it's wgmeal.org. So yeah, please show us your support by going to the website and giving your contributions. All right, Dhanesh, so that's the video for you on World's Greatest Myth.
That was a great video. Thank you.
Just to report, as of date, from Malaysia,
Video
we have had, just a note, as of today, from Malaysia, we have had 78 events of WGM, 78 with 4,700 participants, raising 25K US. So with the Gates Foundation's tripling, we have donated about 75K US for the WGM. Thank you, thank you. So each one of us donate to our own PolioPlus through our My Rotary, donate to our own individual account into PolioPlus and just report. It gets tripled, and it can be as small as 10 US. It can be any amount, and it finally goes on to End Polio. Thank you. Dr. Bernard, you want to share the form?
Okay. To collect the information about how much this particular event is raising, please go to this link I'm going to put down on in the chat box, where you can just enter. You go and donate in and via through your My Rotary login, and so that your foundation points all go to your own name, your own club. But we just want to know how much this event raised. So let me show you the link. So it's in our website, Rotary Club Bandar Petani website. And as you look down, this your name, email, district club, how much you have given or will give. And then if you like, you can share a photo with us with your snack or your meal. Thank you. Okay, now we're going to take a screenshot of a group photograph. And for this special event, let us, okay, switch on your video and show us your meal or snack or drink for the screenshot.
Yeah, I was going to get my drink actually. I haven't had my dinner yet.
Biscuit or a mug or a drink, anything. Come, let's get everyone. So far, we have many not on yet. Okay, ready? I'm going to take. Okay, first shot. 1, 2, 3. Wait a minute, don't go away yet. And second page.
Healthy diet.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you. Back to you.
Thank you, Rotary Club of Bandar Sungai Petani, the host club, for raising, as of now, US 625. By the time we are finished, I'm sure we'll be reaching US 1K. Over to the MCs.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rajesh and Dr. Bernard. Okay, 625, like what Dr. Rajesh said, hopefully we can reach 1K by end of today evening. So hit. All right, thank you so much. And okay, let's go on to the next agenda. Dhanesh, what's in store for us?
We would like to invite Rotarian Krishnan to introduce our PDG Dr Baskaran.
Good evening, everyone. Dear Rotary guests, Rotaractors, and fellow Rotarians, it is my privilege to introduce past District Governor, Dr. Baskaran. Past District Governor Dr. Baskaran is a dentist by profession, a member of Rotary Club of Parthiban since year 2000, District Governor 2018-19. PDG Baskaran is married to Anne Shamala with 2 daughters. PDG Baskaran is a person instrumental in the revival of Rotary in SP and charter member of Rotary Club of Bandar Sungai Petani. PDG Baskaran is a father of RCBSP, our club. Dr. Baskaran has raised close to US $50,000 for polio when he was a DG. Without further ado, over to you, Dr. Baskaran. Thank you.
Thank you, Prasanna, for that kind remarks. Thank you very much. It's always a great pleasure to come back to Rotary Club of Bandar Sungai Petani, whether it's physical or virtual. And I actually want to congratulate Dr. Rajesh, Rotary Club of Bandar Sungai Petani, for taking this great initiative to bring this particular event to our shores. I think it is not a few years ago, hardly any one of us knew about WGM, though it has been in existence for some years. But ever since Dr. Rajesh he became the coordinator, I believe, 3 years ago, Rajesh.
Yes.
He has done a great deal to promote the world's greatest meal, and it's actually a great thing to see your effort that you have put in bringing the big man himself. McGovern is here, the #1 man for polio eradication in RI, and that wonderful lady, Susan. In fact, I've been reading about her, when I came to know about this program. And I was very amazed by this lady. See, all of us are in Rotary and we are happy to be a Rotarian. We do something in the club, but we do not go that one step ahead, do something special. And what Susan has done is something unique. She has given us a vehicle known as World's Greatest Meal. And through that, all of us, each and every Rotarian in every district in the world, have a vehicle or a mechanism to raise funds for polio. I'm really impressed with Susan. Is Susan still around?
Yeah, she is.
Actually, madam, it's a great pleasure to meet you, and I am happy that you are here with us. And your speech was very inspirational because it's very hands-on in the sense that you showed us photos of the work that you did in different parts of the world. And I would actually encourage Rajesh to pass these photos or this video, this presentation, share it with all our clubs. I'm sure this will encourage more Rotarians to give to PolioPlus. And finally, I would also like to acknowledge the presence of 2 past governors who have served as PRF chair in our district. Dr. Rajinder is here, and PDG Leslie. Both of them have done a great deal for polio eradication in term as TRF chairs. And of course, the Rotary Club of Bandar Sungai Petani, I'm extremely very proud of what you have done. Your club has really been an excellent supporter of the Rotary Foundation. For a club that's only about 12 years old, your support for annual fund and polio has been exemplary. I think almost every year your club is the #1 in the district for contribution to polio. Am I right? It's a fact, right? And
always.
12 years of your club's existence, you have produced so many, how many major donors? 3 or 4 major donors, and you have a major donor level 3. And in Arvind, you have a Rotarian who has done so much of work for annual fund. And in Dr. Bernard, you have another man who has literally pushed the limit as far as PolioPlus is concerned. And you have set the benchmark for the Rotary, our Rotary district. And I want to appreciate and thank the Rotary Club and Bandar Sungai Petani for all the effort that you have put in. In fact, I'm very proud because, whenever you're father of a club, when your children do well, it's just like, when after, when you have an exam, if your son or daughter becomes #1 or #2, the sense of pride that you feel. And that's the same pride that I feel whenever I see something the Rotary Club of Bandar Petani has and will continue to do. I'm very sure of that. And with that, I would like to thank all of you. And it's been a great evening. Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you so much, PDG Dr. Baskaran. You have, from the time I joined Rotary, I know that you've consistently supported us and you've always motivated us. And I can't thank you enough on behalf of the club for your continuous support to us and your motivation. I think these are the words that always keeps us going. So thank you so very much on behalf of the club.
A great pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
All right. So, Dhanesh, what's next?
Before I end, Bernard.
Yes.
Before
okay, up next
Dr. Rajesh.
is
yes.
we are inviting.
Yes, PDG. Dhanesh, 1 second. Just hold on. Yes, PDG.
Dr. Rajesh, in support of this magnificent effort from you and Sungai Petani Club in bringing this WGM to our district, I pledge US 500 for your program for today. All right, I'll put it in. Thank you.
PDG, you can have another 10 minutes stop. No problem.
No, thank you. Then you'll ask me.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you.
PDG Dr. Baskaran, thank you so much for your generous contribution. It means a lot. And this is another step to take us closer and closer to eradicating polio. So thank you so much, Dr. Baskaran.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, Dhanesh, over to you.
Yeah, Dr. Parthiban, to seize the evening today, I would like to invite our PE Tagu for the word thanks.
Thank you, Dhanesh. Good evening. Can everyone listen to me? Okay, good. So good evening and good day to all our guests, to our DG, Dato Bindi, and also her rep, PDG Dr. Baskaran, PDG Leslie, PDG Dr. Rajinder, and all the PDGs, DGs, AG, presidents, Rotarian, Rotaractor, and guests. Thanks a lot to attend this program. Before I move on to thanks, we call our speakers today. I was really amazed with their efforts, with their whatever they done. So before I thank them, I was watch a movie called Chennai Express recently, and Shah Rukh Khan always quote this. He said, "Please don't underestimate power of common man." So after seeing and listen to our co-founder WGM, Susanne Rea, and I can really feel that quote, "Don't underestimate power of common man." So thanks, Susan, and also Michael. Normally we saw the news, okay, what's happening in other country like Afghanistan and all those things, but here you are the guys in the field, go there and experience. So this is like watching a movie for me especially. So on behalf of Rotary Club of Bandar Sungai Petani, we are really privileged to have both of you and also Dr. Selva, okay, for tonight. And I would like to thanks a million for you. Thank you. Back to MC.
Thank you, Tiago. It was short and sweet, as always. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to an end for this event. I would like to extend my thanks and gratitude to Dr. Rajesh for making this happen. And to those of you that came in midway through the program, I've always wanted to say this. You can always log into our YouTube channel. Please like, subscribe, and share. Let everybody know about this. So yes, so I always wanted to say that. So thank you so much. I think we'll close the session for further discussions and fellowship. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming in.
Thank
you,
you.
thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you for your generosity as well.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night and thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
It's
Thank you.
tomorrow already now in Australia.
Okay.
So sorry if I look a bit tired. Good night.
Good night. Good night.
Bye, Susan.
Good night.